not going to sing that Trees song. That one takes like it was one or the other. You had your chance, but you can. I do have a show tomorrow in Chico. This last song I'm going to leave you with is kind of a song born out of necessity, like all the great inventions that came before it. I'm kidding. It's kind of a protest song, and I'm protesting against some of our fellow Americans who at times seem to be unaware that my home state, the great state of New Mexico, is in fact one of the 50 states that makes up our nation. So I believe it's a bipartisan issue we can all get behind, regardless of how we feel. It's true. No, really, I travel around, me and this guitar, we go from town to town a lot, and I meet lots of folks, and I love meeting folks and talking about where I'm going, where I came from. It's just lots of conversations. Sometimes similar questions come up, and people often ask, well, where are you from? And I always say, well, I'm from New Mexico. And you'd be surprised how often that elicits like a confused remark, like, really, you're from New Mexico? But you speak such good English. I don't understand. Well, it's not really, it might be hard to relate to out here in the West, but I'm sure some of you have your own stories, or maybe you've experienced a similar tale. But it's a cool song, and it's kind of a country song written to sort of like an old George Jones style country. And I'll leave you with this song, and before I go, I just want to say thanks again, and thanks to Mr. Albert Lee for having me here tonight, and to all of you for cheering me on. Again, my name is Max Gomez. It's nice to meet you. And after this show, I'm going to be hanging out in the back of the room there with my friend Rosie, who's hanging out by those pretty neon lights. And I've got some records for sale and an email list, and you can find me in all the usual places on Instagram or Facebook, online and such. And it was lovely to meet you guys. Thank you so much. Here goes nothing. Remember what I said about the more noise you make, the better it sounds. Well, in a barren but beautiful desert, my pony up and died. Found my way to an old highway and put my thumb out for a ride. Hitchhiker song. A team of crazed coyotes, they stopped and offered me a ride. They said, what do you know about New Mexico? And I looked to them and cried. It ain't new, it ain't Mexico. Some things you ought to know. One and one is two. Skies where the four winds blow, caught our stones contento. Some things you ought to know, like New Mexico. The trunk was filled with chili, headed west on I-40. Destination headquarters, one-man Trader Joe. The deal's on the table for an insufficient sum. When the buyer had the the hell's this chili from? He said, it ain't new, it ain't Mexico. Some things you ought to know. One and one is two. The skies where the four winds blow. Corazón is contento. Some things you ought to know, like New Mexico. All right. My big guitar solo for that. Thank you very much. Now, in tonight's last verse of this song, I mean you no disrespect in case you happen to be from Kansas or Kansas City, Missouri, or in case you work for the TSA. I mean, no offense, it's just a story that happened to me when I was younger, and it seems like the appropriate ending to this song right now. Well, down at the Kansas City airport, they asked me for ID. So I showed my driver's license to the gal at security. She said, although you speak good English, I cannot let you through, because for international travelers, only passports will do. I said, it ain't Mexico. Some things you ought to know. One and one is two. The skies where the four winds blow. Corazón is contento. Some things you ought to know, like New Mexico. Yeah, no passports to show in New Mexico, USA. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you. See you down the road. Thank you, Albert.